Hi, and welcome to All Things Social Security. I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney. Just wanted to alert you, if you haven't already heard, about the new membership options we have. If you click the join button below, you'll see the mission as to what we plan on doing with that, potentially, and also what benefits you can get for joining a membership. So stay tuned. Your video is about to start. Thanks so much. Bye. Hey there. This is in response to a request from somebody to explain a little bit about an OTR. What is an OTR? OTR is on the record, and it refers to a request one can make of the Office of Hearings Operations, where your ALJ is housed at, prior to your hearing. And apparently you could do it perhaps after a hearing, but we call those something different usually. But anyway, on the record request, you're asking the judge to take a look at the case and see if it can be determined favorably, in your favor, of course, fully favorably, based on all the medical records you've submitted, everything that's in the file as it is. Obviously, you're going to want to know what's in the file. So if you're pro se, this would mean you've had a copy of your file sent to you from the judge's office, the OHO, or you otherwise were able to get it. Sometimes they send them out in CDs, the old-fashioned way, I think. But you should be able to get it in other ways, technically, I believe. When we do an OTR, and it's not common, and the reason why I don't do them very frequently, is because the judge's office, as I understand it, already does a look over to see if it is something that they can decide on the record without needing a hearing. That's the whole point about an OTR, without needing a hearing. And if they haven't come to the conclusion that it's so, and they're going to be the deciders in the end, it means they need to hear from the claimant. They're not fully convinced on the record. So the claimant has that one opportunity to show up for hearing and answer questions, and they can decide then if it changes what isn't other at all in the record very well, or it could be very close in the record and they just want to hear from the claimant. So we don't do them if it's not so clearly going to be almost like a listing. Or sometimes if something very, very major happened in the interim, and we're sending up the records, but they could have already looked at the file and, kept it going on to hearing, as most generally do. And we want to alert them to something that might very well make it into a clearly favorable. Therefore, they might be able to do the OTR, assuming I've gotten them these updated records, of course. So now they are on the record themselves. That might be one of the instances. To do an OTR, I would always put a brief and explain why I think it's an OTR. So I'm going to be putting in, referencing all of the basis upon which I think they can get to the 5 steps and find my client disabled when he or she has claimed to be. So it would be with a brief. I'm not saying that that's necessarily required, but I'll tell you that something that the SSA says right here, and I'm going to try to attach a button or here with this page so you can click right on it, because they do give a check sheet of the things that you want to cover in an OTR. Make sure that you can, explain on it's like a check sheet, that all these things, what things you think would direct them that the 5 steps have been met. And they have a link to the check sheet. So I'm going to put up this page and you can, it'll be a button up here someplace. But they say that if you believe the evidence supports a fully favorable decision, and they're speaking to us basically, for your claimant, you may submit a brief to us, but verbally before we hold a hearing. You may also submit a proposed check sheet. I don't see why a claimant couldn't do that, but if you're not able to articulate the connection of the legal dots and the factual dots in some kind of concise way, and when we say concise, they don't want lengthy. I mean, I hear that they want 1 page, 2 page briefs at best. This check sheet might actually be the way to go. But you could ask for an on the record request, and if they don't grant it, and you're probably not going to even hear if they're going to, unless they do. So if you don't hear anything, I would definitely presume you're going to hearing and plan accordingly. But an on the record request is certainly something that could be requested. They're not common. I think they used to be more common, but they don't seem to be of late. Maybe if, a few a year, it just doesn't seem that common. Granted, I take a lot of younger people sometimes, so that might not be anticipated as the strongest OTR in general, given the difficulties of that vocational profile. So we usually do tend to have to go to hearing. But anyway, I will link this page up. I don't see why a pro se person couldn't do an OTR if they wanted. Again, I would probably think it's only if you kind of know how the dots need to be connected legally. That check sheet might help you. Because if you're just saying, I want you to give me an on the record award because I think I'm disabled, they already know you think you're disabled because you wouldn't have applied. So you might want to give them something to reference all the little very important pieces of evidence that they should be looking at that would make it clear that the medical evidence connects the dots, okay, to the finding of disabled. All righty, OTR. I hope that helps. I don't know how often a lot of reps request them. I try to limit it to when they could be most impactful. Sometimes, and again, this is not that common, the OHO or the judge will actually issue a fully favorable on its own without you having to ask for it. And that's like an OTR. They decided to look on the record. I think I kind of alluded to this before, when they oversee everything from the beginning just to see if there's something could be banged out without a hearing. That does happen sometimes. Love it, particularly if I haven't already spent dozens of hours on a brief. I really love it. But usually I'm really, over time, I've gotten early and earlier with my briefs. I don't like doing anything close to the deadline of anything. I just don't like it. So I always have mine's being worked on all throughout the case with my client, so that it's always as close as it can be to done, but without actually being done until a few weeks before hearing. I try to get mine in 30 days ahead of time. It doesn't always happen. I have one that's got to go out next week. I think it's next week. It could be ready. I just have to finish it. Anyway, all right, guys. OTR, on the record request for an award. I'll talk to you later.